Hello all. Ashnik has recently released its open source survey for 2023-24, which is now live on their website. Let us get an overview on the state of open source. Welcome Deepti Dilip, the Director of Marketing at Ashnik, to this special episode on the state of open source across Southeast Asia and India. With 4 years of survey experience in running the survey, Deepti offers valuable insights into the current and future trends driving open source. Let's hear from her.
Sure. So we do the open source survey. Ashnik does this every year. This is an annual tradition for us. And the idea behind doing this is to sort of get an understanding and insight into what are the upcoming trends, what are the newer technologies, what's hot with our customers, with our prospects. And this sort of gives us a sense of also what's happening in the region, which is why we sort of talk to a few, seasoned professionals and get their views, because then their opinions really matter to us, of course. We talk to a diverse range of individuals, whether they are technology enthusiasts, C-level decision makers, managers, IT heads, DX heads, and so on and so forth, and gather their views and opinions and insights in the sense of what is the new thing and what is the future of open source and where it is headed. We try also and cover a lot of geographies. We talk to people in Singapore, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, India, APAC, across APAC. And we do have a few participants also from the US, but it is typically within this region. And that's why I think it's special, because a lot of the surveys I notice for open source specifically don't cater to just this market. They cater globally. And I guess with this survey, we are able to bring more narrowed and more directed inputs, which is for this region, which makes sense for this region. I guess that's why this survey becomes a little more interesting and, is definitely looked up by a lot of the people in the industry. They go through it and we get a lot of reviews and responses in the sense of how they find some of the statistics and insights extremely useful and knowledgeable.
Which are the top DX initiatives where open source will play an important role in 2023-24?
DX initiatives that open source surveys today supporting or pillaring, like, whether it's the database space, whether it's emerging technologies, whether they're talking of AI, ML, unified observability, data pipeline, analytics, or just overall data management. Across all of these initiatives for customers today, open source plays an extremely important role. And that's another observation which was interesting, because it was something that a lot of the participants put forward, when through their votes and choices of answers.
What is the key role Unified Observability will play in enterprises in 2023-24?
What's really important to a lot of enterprise customers is achieving unified observability. And that is a very critical initiative. And it is going to be a critical initiative for the next 1 or 2 years for everyone, to get in tandem. There are a lot of people the whole curve of adoption is different. A lot of people are started their journey of unified observability. Some of them are just starting out. And for all those enterprises, there is there are certainly challenges that they face. And we had asked this question in the survey as well, right? By the way, to answer your question, Unified Observability was also unanimously voted as an important initiative across from all the participants, which means it's really hot and right on top at this point.
What will be the impact of OSPO, Open Source Program Office, in organizations to encourage a structured adoption of open source in 2023-24?
A lot of organizations today, in fact, even in the survey, if you look at the survey, you'll see that about 49% of the organizations today state that an OSPO, it's called an OSPO, which is an open source program office, with the right teams and the right budgets assigned to it. So I guess that was something that was very interesting to look at, because a lot of them, the 49% is a big number, and they said it will be, implemented, and 20% in fact said that it's already implemented. So that's also very encouraging as a number to know of.
What are the key reasons organizations are gearing to work with open source service providers in 2023-24?
In the survey as well, there is one statistic which is very interesting, and where organizations were asked as to, if you want to work with open source providers, what is it that you want to work with them for? What is it the driving force is? And almost 52% of the people said It was the familiarity with open source and getting the guidance on the right fit tools and technologies being one of the top reasons why they want to work with providers like us. And I guess that makes a lot of sense because I get it. You are able to take things, faster and able to amp up faster because, you have a sort of seasoned professional who's been in the business, knows open source in and out, and can help you. So working with providers today has become a very common, phenomenon, and we are seeing that increasingly in most of our regions actually, right? And one of the other reasons why they also want to work with providers like us is for better support, which I think they feel sometimes they may lack from product vendors, but they get it from service providers. So there's more 24/7 support. I mean, there are systems in place to be able to provide that for customers. And that is, another driving force as well.
Which are the top observability tools for monitoring in 2023-24?
For monitoring, the top observability tools, in fact, it is, you will see it in the survey as well. ELK was the most preferred observability tool for monitoring. And that got 40% of the participants picked ELK. 36% picked Prometheus Loki, and the rest 25 picked a mixed bag of, Grafana, Datadog, Splunk, New Relic, and others. So these are all the top tools today in the market, which, you can use for observability.
Which open source database categories will see an increased usage in enterprises in 2023-24?
One of the statistics showed very interestingly that the cloud-based database will see an increased usage in the coming year. Very closely followed by relational database, such as Postgres and, others. 23% in fact said distributed SQL and 22% picked no SQL databases. So they're all very close if you look at the numbers, which just goes on to show that database itself across is, very heavily going to be, backed by open source, at least for the year and the next from where we see.
What are the key organizational goals in migrating to open source database from legacy ones?
Participants pick some of the very key goals, which was in their order of importance or order of preference. Cost efficiency was at number one. Over 50% of the people said that they choose open source database for better cost efficiency, followed by wanting to implement a new age technology. So Postgres database, which is, of course, has been one of the most well-known open source databases and has been is also being used by some of the very top enterprises today in Asia.
Which key factors organizations would like to address to better leverage their PostgreSQL database?
We sort of wanted to know from our participants as to what are the key factors, that they would want in Postgres. If they had to address something they see as a challenge or as not an issue, I can't say it's a challenge or an issue, but if they would like to better their Postgres in some sense, and how or what would it be? So there were some interesting answers, starting from automation for deployment, management, and monitoring of Postgres. This was interesting to see. A lot of people, a lot of enterprises today feel like this is an area where, they need help, or they could, they could do better on the Postgres front, right? Then the cost of commercial Postgres is obviously the enterprise Postgres. The cost which is climbing as opposed to, of course, your open source Postgres. That was one of the concerns that, was put forward. And lack of in-house Postgres skills. We do come back to skills very often because obviously this is so skill set based. So, same thing with Postgres skills. Lack of in-house Postgres was one thing that was mentioned. And the lack of support from third-party vendors. This is another thing that also came up, which was interesting to observe.
What will be the various organizations' budget for open source technologies in 2023-24?
The survey also forecasted that 86% of enterprises said that their organization's budget for open source technologies will increase in 23-24. I think that's a very valuable observation that we derive from this survey. So if any of you viewers have any further questions or queries on open source, on the open source survey, or even otherwise, please feel free to reach out to us at success@ashnik.com, or you can also visit our website, www.ashnik.com. So, talk to us and we'll be happy to deliver the solutions that you're looking for the open source way.